If you have already watched our video on how avoidant attachment forms, this is the companion piece. That video explained the why. This one is entirely different. This one shows you the specific age-by-age signs inside your child's actual behavior right now that tell you avoidant attachment may already be developing. Because here is the thing most parents never learn until it is years later. Avoidant attachment has a built-in disguise. It does not look like a child who is struggling. It looks like a child who is fine, a child who is composed, a child who handles things. And that disguise is so effective, so genuinely convincing that even the most observant parents miss it completely, until they know what they are actually looking at. Today, that changes. 4 stages, specific signs at each one, and one piece of science at the end that will permanently change how you understand your composed, easy, self-sufficient child. Let's start there. At the year 1990s, researchers Spangler and Grossman did something that had never been done before in attachment research. They measured what was happening inside avoidant children's bodies while those children appeared completely calm on the outside. What they found stunned the field. Avoidant children, the ones who showed no distress when their parent left, who appeared unbothered, who went right back to playing, had elevated heart rates and elevated cortisol levels, identical to securely attached children who were visibly upset. The distress was there. The body was registering it fully. The nervous system was running the same alarm that every other child's nervous system was running. The only thing that was absent was the outward signal. John Bowlby, who founded attachment theory, called this pattern compulsive self-reliance, a state in which the child has learned to handle distress entirely alone, not because they are emotionally strong, but because experience taught them that showing distress produces no reliable comfort. So the signal gets switched off at the output. The internal experience continues unchanged. This is the single most important thing to understand before reading any of the signs below. Your avoidant child is not fine. They are managing. Those are completely different things. And learning to see the difference, to read what is happening beneath the composed exterior, is exactly what this video is designed to help you do. Stage 1. Infancy, 6 to 18 months. Most attachment research in infancy uses the strange situation procedure, a controlled laboratory observation designed by Mary Ainsworth and Barbara Wittig in 1970. But the signs of avoidant attachment are visible long before any laboratory. They appear in the body, in the earliest weeks of the relationship between parent and child. Sign 1. Reduced physical seeking during distress. Every infant is born with one biological reflex. When something is wrong, reach for the body of the person closest to you. Crying, reaching arms up, turning the face toward the caregiver, these are not learned behaviors. They are hardwired. Watch what your infant does when distressed. Not when content, when distressed. Do they arch toward you, reach, turn their face up? An infant whose early emotional signals have been consistently met with discomfort, withdrawal, or dismissal from the caregiver begins, over dozens and then hundreds of interactions, to reduce these reaching behaviors. Not all at once, gradually. The reflex is still there, but the output dims. By around 8 to 12 months, the pattern is visible. The avoidantly developing infant reaches less, arches less, seeks your body less precisely in the moments they most need it. Sign 2. Aversion to face-to-face contact during feeding or holding. This one requires specific attention to when it happens, not just whether it happens. All infants look away sometimes. That is normal self-regulation. What is significant is the pattern of looking away specifically during emotionally loaded moments, feeding, being held, being comforted, as opposed to during play or exploration. Research on avoidant attachment consistently identifies limited eye contact as a distinguishing feature, not a blanket absence of eye contact, but an aversion during the moments of closeness that carry emotional weight. The infant has begun to learn that the face of the caregiver in moments of need is not a reliable source of warmth. And so, the face becomes something to navigate carefully rather than turn toward freely. Sign 3. Stiffening when held. When you pick up your infant in a moment of distress, do they mold to your body, or do they hold a slight rigidity, a subtle resistance? Avoidantly attached infants often show what researchers describe as failure to mold a tension in the body when held that is the physical counterpart of the emotional withdrawal happening internally. They are in your arms, and some part of them is already not quite there. What this stage tells you, the signs at this age are quiet and easy to rationalize. What you are looking for is not dramatic, it is a dimming, a reduction in the reflex toward you, specifically in moments of need. If you notice it, do not wait for it to resolve itself. Move toward your infant more deliberately, more warmly, and more consistently than feels necessary. You are rebuilding a signal that is being unlearned. Stage 2. Toddler, 18 months to 3 years. Here is where something new and specifically concerning enters the picture. Something that goes beyond the relationship with the parent and begins affecting the child's relationship with their own interior world. Sign 1. Disregard of body signals. Clinical research published in the journal Archives of Disease in Childhood identified a pattern in avoidantly attached toddlers that most parents would never connect to attachment: physical self-neglect. Avoidant children, as a result of unattuned parenting, learn to disregard discomfort, including the discomfort of their own body. This can show up as a toddler who does not report hunger, who does not communicate pain clearly, who continues playing with an obvious physical need unaddressed. The child who does not come to you when they are hurt is the most visible version of this. But the deeper version is the child who has stopped clearly registering to themselves that something is wrong. The disconnection from emotional need, practiced across hundreds of interactions, begins bleeding into disconnection from physical need. Sign 2. Object preference over people, specifically during stress. Research from multiple studies, including work by Lewis and Firing, and later by Jacobson and Willey, found that avoidantly attached children show more object-focused play relative to securely attached peers, particularly when some level of stress is present in the environment. This is not about general play patterns. It is about what the child turns to when the emotional environment becomes complex. Secure children, when they sense tension or uncertainty, turn toward people. Avoidant children turn toward objects. Watch your toddler when the household energy shifts when you are stressed, when an argument has happened, when something is emotionally charged in the room. Does your toddler move toward you or toward a toy? That direction of movement in moments of ambient stress is one of the most reliable early indicators available to a parent. Sign 3. The absence of checking in. Every toddler exploring a new environment does something called social referencing. They check back with the caregiver, not because they need help, simply because they want to share the experience and confirm safety. Did you see that? Is this okay? The frequency and quality of this checking in is measurable, and avoidantly attached toddlers do it significantly less, not never, less. The shared gaze that says, "I want you in this moment with me," decreases as the toddler's internal working model. The nervous system's best prediction about what reaching toward you will produce tells it that reaching inward is more reliable than reaching outward. What this stage tells you, if your toddler seems surprisingly self-contained during emotionally charged moments, is slow to signal physical discomfort, and gravitates to objects when the room is tense, these are not personality traits to celebrate. They are a pattern to respond to. Your job at this stage is to insert yourself gently into the moments of stress before your child turns away. Do not wait for the reach. Begin the connection yourself. Stage 3. Preschool, 3 to 6 years. By preschool, the avoidant child's internal working model has extended beyond the parent-child relationship and begun shaping how they see and relate to every other person in their world. Sign 1. Negative attribution bias toward peers. Research by Seuss, Grossman, and Sroufe found that secure children make realistic or even benevolent attributions about the intentions of peers, while avoidant children showed more hostile and negative biases, reading neutral behavior as potentially threatening or unwelcoming. In practice, your preschooler comes home and tells you that another child at school does not like them based on something ambiguous, like being looked at, or not being called on, or a brief comment. When you probe, no actual rejection happened. But your child's nervous system, trained to expect that reaching outward leads to dismissal, interpreted the neutral moment as confirmation of what it already believed. This is not oversensitivity. It is a prediction error baked in by experience. The nervous system is not misreading the present. It is accurately applying what it learned in the past to a situation that doesn't actually match. Sign 2. Emotional constriction in imaginative play. Research published in the Scandinavian Journal of Psychology found that children with avoidant attachment show less pretend play and less emotionally rich fantasy play compared to securely attached peers, particularly play that involves emotional vulnerability, caregiving themes, or relational scenarios. This is a significant sign because play is the primary language of a preschooler's emotional world. A child who freely imagines scenarios of comfort, connection, fear, and rescue is a child whose emotional interior is accessible and expressible. A child who limits play to action, construction, or object manipulation, who shows little interest in relational imaginative scenarios, may be a child whose emotional interior has become a space they are not comfortable inhabiting. Watch specifically for what themes are absent from your child's play. Not just what they gravitate to, but what they never do. Avoidant preschoolers often do not play out scenarios of being comforted, of being cared for, of being hurt and helped. Those scenarios are close to territory their nervous system has learned to avoid. Sign 3. Eliciting punitive responses from adults. In a finding that deserves far more attention than it receives, researcher Sroof and colleagues observed that avoidant preschoolers appeared to elicit punitive reactions from teachers, while anxiously attached children tended to receive nurturance and tolerance from the same teachers. This is not about unfair teachers. It is about the avoidant child's relational pattern. A child who has learned to present a flat, closed, unresponsive emotional surface, who does not signal need, does not seek connection, does not show the vulnerability that activates a caregiver's warmth, often triggers a transactional, no-nonsense response from adults, rather than the warmth plus firmness combination that is actually needed. The avoidant child gets the kind of interaction their exterior signals for, and the interior, where the stress and the need are fully present, goes unseen and unmet. What this stage tells you: if your preschooler seems to receive harsher or more impersonal treatment from teachers than other children, if their play is notably thin in relational and emotional content, and if they consistently misread neutral peer behavior as negative, these three together are a picture worth taking seriously. And taking seriously means bringing more warmth to the moments your child's exterior would not naturally invite it. Stage 4. School age, 6 to 10 years. By school age, what began as a relational adaptation has been practiced so thoroughly that it has begun to look like temperament, like character, like who this child simply is. And that is exactly what makes this the most dangerous stage to miss. Sign 1. Dismissing their own emotional experiences. Avoidant school-age children develop a characteristic cognitive style. They minimize, deny, or rationalize away their own distress with a speed and conviction that is striking. Something hard happens, a rejection, a failure, a loss, and the child's response, delivered quickly and with apparent sincerity, is, "It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's fine." But the cortisol is still rising. The heart rate is still elevated. The internal experience is happening just as it always was. The output switch is simply off. What parents often notice over time is that the "it doesn't matter" accumulates. The child who dismissed one loss, then another, eventually arrives at a place where the accumulated unprocessed emotion begins leaking sideways, in disproportionate irritability, in physical complaints with no medical cause, in sleep disturbances, in a flatness of mood that gets mistaken for introversion or maturity. Sign 2. Compulsive self-reliance that crosses into refusal of help. At school age, the avoidant child's self-sufficiency has had years to calcify. It is no longer just a behavioral pattern, it has become an identity. I do it myself. Not as a developmental milestone, as a wall. The sign to watch for is not the child who wants to try things independently that is healthy. The sign is the child who becomes genuinely distressed when help is offered, who experiences assistance as an intrusion, who, when a teacher, parent, or peer steps in to support them, responds with withdrawal, irritability, or a complete shutdown of the task. The help has hit a nerve. Because accepting help means acknowledging a need. And acknowledging a need is the thing this child's nervous system has been trained, across thousands of interactions, to never do. Sign 3. Seeking comfort and satisfaction outside the family. John Bowlby described a specific feature of avoidantly attached individuals. Because caregiver-directed overtures produced no reliable comfort, the child gradually redirects their comfort-seeking toward weak-tie relationships, acquaintances, activities, objects, rather than the close relationships that would naturally be the source of deepest support. At school age, this shows up as a child who seems more relaxed and warmer with strangers or casual acquaintances than with parents or close family, who is notably more open with a friend's parent than their own, who appears to have their richest emotional expression in contexts furthest from home. This is not the child preferring other adults over you because those adults are more fun. It is the child whose nervous system has associated distance with safety and closeness with the risk of disappointment. The people who cannot dismiss them because they do not know them well enough to have done so, yet are the people their nervous system can briefly relax around. What this stage tells you: a school-age child who dismisses their own emotional experiences rapidly, who experiences help as threatening rather than welcome, and who is consistently warmer at a distance than up close. These three are not personality quirks. They are a coherent picture of a nervous system that found a strategy for survival a long time ago and is now running it on autopilot. The strategy is working, and it is costing them everything it was designed to protect. Every sign across every stage points to the same thing. A child who learned in the first year of life, from the most fundamental relationship they had, that the outward expression of need produces no reliable return, and who responded to that learning with the most intelligent adaptation available. I will stop showing what I need. I will handle it myself. I will not reach. That adaptation is not weakness. It is not damage. It is a nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Find the strategy most likely to keep the child close to the caregiver without triggering rejection. But the adaptation that preserved the relationship in infancy becomes, by school age, a prison. The child who manages alone, dismisses their own distress, and seeks comfort only at a distance is a child who has lost access to the most fundamental human resource: the ability to be known and held by another person in a moment of genuine need. That capacity can be rebuilt. Research consistently shows that the internal working model, the nervous system's learned prediction about whether reaching is safe, updates in response to new evidence. Consistent, warm, unsolicited warmth. Presence in moments the child did not signal for. Coming closer when the exterior sends no invitation. That is the evidence the nervous system of an avoidant child is waiting for. Reaching is safe here. I will try again. The child who seems easiest is sometimes the child who needs you most urgently. Not because they are broken, because they are doing something extraordinary, managing a full interior life completely alone and paying a cost no child should have to pay. If something in this video named what you have been watching in your child, share it with a parent who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me which sign you had been calling something else: independence, maturity, strong personality. And stay with this series because there is a video on how avoidant attachment forms, one on what builds secure attachment instead, and everything in between. Until next time, look past the composed exterior. The child who never asks is still asking. You just have to learn to hear the silence.